everybody, I'm Laura Trump coming to you from Studio 45 at Trump Tower in New York City. It's National Police Week, which gives us the chance to reflect on fallen police officers and their survivors and the important role of the rule of law in America. Joining me to reflect on our treasured law enforcers is the former commissioner of the New York City Police Department, Bernard Kerik. Bernie, thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to have you in studio. Listen, we love our law enforcement officers there who keep us safe in this country, who keep the rule of law going. And this is a great opportunity, Police Week, to really reflect on that. Now, you led the NYPD in 9/11, and of all people, you know the sacrifice that police officers, that law enforcement makes. Give me your thoughts on Police Week, why it's so important, and why it's something we should all celebrate.
You know, actually, Laura, I was at the first Police Week in 1992, and I've been to many, many since. On 9/11, I lost 23 people that worked for me. We lost 37 Port Authority cops and 343 firefighters. So nobody knows and understands better than we do in New York City how important it is to recognize the men and women that work for us. And that's what happens at Police Week, at the memorial. Last year we lost 144 cops around the country in the line of duty. And I think this gives America the chance to reflect on that and to thank the men and women that are out there doing a job that most people wouldn't have the courage to do.
Yeah.
These men and women stand between good and evil. They put their lives on the line for people that they don't know, regardless of the color of their skin or where they come from or who they are. And I think it's a great opportunity for America to see and to witness and to reflect and to thank them, most importantly.
So, Bernie, this week we saw it is Police Week, and the president delivered remarks at the annual Peace Officers Memorial Service. Let's take a look.
These brave heroes did not put on the uniform for praise or for glory. They wore the badge because it was their duty, their calling, their noble purpose to serve, protect, like nobody has ever done it before. They embodied our highest ideals and greatest aspirations. They were the very best of us. There was nobody close.
So really touching words from the president there. And, you know, we've touched on this, but of all presidents, I feel like he might be the biggest ally to law enforcement officers we've seen in a long time in the White House. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say, as somebody that's been in the business 30, 35 years, and I've been through a number of presidents personally, I would say he is the greatest ally we've ever had in the White House. And I know that for reasons that the general public wouldn't know. Keith Schiller, who worked for me, that was the president's bodyguard for a long period of time. Yeah. What a lot of people wouldn't know is that when many of these officer deaths around the country occurred, I would call Keith. And Keith would tell the president, before he was the president.
Who was then just Donald Trump, the businessman.
Donald Trump, the businessman. And he would get on the phone and call the families. Wow. This was consistent. He's done it since he's been president. He did it when he was campaigning. And these are things nobody knows. Nobody knows that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows he picked up the phone and called the family. You know, some presidents have done it for the military. I would say he does it more than anyone has ever done it before. And that's a demonstration of a man that is sincerely an ally and cares deeply about the men and women that serve our country.
Yeah, and he continues to demonstrate that. You know, you hear him at rallies, every single rally. He says, let's thank our law enforcement officers. He understands that there is a war on cops going on out there. And for whatever reason it has over the past 10 years or so, gotten worse and become something that I know I think about from my cousin who's out there every single day. But he certainly goes out of his way to thank law enforcement, to recognize law enforcement, and I think to make sure that people all around this country understand, listen, we go about our day-to-day life and we pass a police officer on the street, but this person is out there sacrificing themselves and they're willing to do it for you and for me, and we should all remember that. So he always makes sure, I think, that we take a moment and recognize exactly what people are doing for us when they are in the law enforcement line of duty.
You know what, Laura, when you say the general public walks by that cop and they see them, you know, the president, and a lot of people may not know this, he doesn't walk by a cop that he doesn't stop and shake their hand.
That's right.
Never.
You're right.
Never. I mean, he does not, even on a detail, even on, you know, in movement, even when he's leaving to go back to the airport, even, you know, a lot of his movement, he will actually stop the motorcade.
Yep.
Jump out.
Which Secret Service hates.
No, listen, I will tell you,
them, but
as somebody
appreciate
that
it.
ran and oversaw many of the details here
Yeah.
for presidents, I will tell you, it's not a great thing when he does that. And he panics the entire detail, especially the White House detail and the lead Secret Service agent. He will stop the motorcade on the way to the airport when he sees a line of cops and firemen.
You're right.
Get out, go over to them, shake their hand, and say thank you.
Yep, he does. He does it every single time. Now, shifting gears a little bit, we have all seen in the past couple of years that as many really great cops as there are that we pass every single day on the street, at the top, unfortunately, of the FBI, there seem to have been some what we might call dirty cops. A couple of people who thought that they knew better than the rest of the country, who thought they were going to take matters into their own hands. Is what we've seen happen with the very few people in the FBI at the top a total breakdown of the rule of law? I mean, what do you make of what we've seen happen there?
Listen, as somebody that's been on the receiving end of being a target by the government, I can tell you, never in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought that I would see this type of unethical and criminal conduct at the highest levels of the FBI and Justice Department. I would have bet my life that would have never happened. So I'm a bit shocked. I'm really shocked. Here's the way I look at it as somebody that's been through this. There's no greater threat to our democracy than a government that weaponizes its criminal justice system for political reasons. And that's what they did. They weaponized the criminal justice system and our intel community to target a constitutionally elected president.
Yep.
And in an attempted coup.
It's exactly what it is.
And they failed, but they only failed because he won. Had he lost,
no one would have ever known.
No one would have ever known this entire thing was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraged by the new Attorney General.
Yep.
You know, I've said for the last year and a half, as has Rudy Giuliani, there has to be accountability for the actions that's been taken against him. I'm encouraged by the Attorney General and what he's doing. People have to be held accountable for what happened. You know, if you're a cop or a state trooper or an FBI agent, a line agent, and you testify under oath and you lie, you're held accountable, you're fired.
Right.
You can go to jail. You had the deputy director of the FBI make false statements, 3 times of which he was under oath before Congress, and nothing happened.
Right.
You know, he was fired, but there's no real accountability.
Isn't it so hypocritical, though? Isn't the hypocrisy just insane based on the fact that now they want my brother-in-law, Don, who's testified for over 30 hours.
Which is completely, that is completely insane.
It's crazy. And meanwhile, we have people, to your point, who have not been held accountable yet. Don't you think we need an investigation of the investigators? That's what we hope to see happen?
That's what I think the Attorney General is in the process of doing. When you have a group of men and women in the intel community and the FBI and Justice Department that deceives a court to obtain warrants to surveil American citizens like Mike Flynn and then set him up for a perjury trap and then charge him criminally with a false statement, then how does the deputy director of the FBI get away with it?
It's unbelievable.
How does Jim Comey get away with leaking confidential, classified, and executive privileged documents to the New York Times? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I think there are a lot of people in this country that don't get it, but fortunately, we do have an attorney general, I think, that is taking this very seriously, as he should. And listen, hopefully we get to the bottom of this. Americans deserve to know. We need to make clear that this is not okay in our country, because the president has said, I never want to see this happen to any other president. This should never happen to anyone.
You know what? That's probably the greatest point of all.
Yeah.
For him, for the president, this isn't only about him. He wants to ensure
it's about the future.
It never happens to nobody again,
right.
Because it should not happen.
No, it shouldn't happen at all.
This isn't China or Russia or Venezuela. This is the United States, where we live by a constitution and in the rule of law.
Yeah.
You can't violate the law to enforce it.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to change gears one more time. I want to talk about the First Step Act. This is something that you've been a huge proponent of. You've really helped the president push this forward. You recently authored an op-ed titled, Dems Should Forget Prisoner Voting, Join Trump on First Step Reforms. Tell me about that. Tell me why you're such a champion of the First Step Act.
Well, I'm a champion of the First Step Act because I think historically, and I worked with the Obama administration trying to get this done, and they couldn't get it done. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, when the president was elected, I received phone calls from Washington, D.C., and they said, with Trump in office, this is never going to happen.
Wow.
I was told that over and over. And I can tell you that as I watched Jared Kushner lead this momentum, I would call people and say, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. The president said, if you get the bill to my desk, I'm going to sign it. And Jared was on a mission. And he got something done that I don't think the last 2 or 3 presidents could have done, which was stunning and surprising. And I think it's the right thing to do because, we put people in prison. Prison is a training ground for thuggery and criminality.
That's right.
They learn how to steal and cheat and lie, manipulate, con. You put them in prison, 10 years, 15 years. You don't do anything for them. You don't give them life skills, vocational skills, work ethic. Then you send them home, and all these members of Congress sit around and they're like, how come the recidivism rate isn't dropping?
Hello.
Well, you're not doing anything for them.
Right.
Right? The president wants to incentivize good behavior. He wants to create programs so they'll be better people when they go back to their communities. And that was the mission he was on. Now, the op-ed piece I wrote basically had to do with Bernie Sanders and his, the only thing I could call it is insanity. We should give...
A lot of people say stuff about him like that, don't worry.
No, but think about what he said. I want to give terrorists and murderers and rapists the ability to vote in prison.
Insane.
Look, you are deprived, as a result of a conviction, you're deprived of certain constitutional and civil rights. Upon the completion of your sentence and probation, you can be given many of those rights back. I agree with that. But to basically open up the prisons, especially to the most violent of violent, and say, yeah, they should have all the civil and constitutional rights that everybody else should have.
The law-abiding citizens have.
Well, in that case, what about the Second Amendment? You're going to give them guns too?
Right.
It's sheer stupidity. So my piece basically said, if you're really interested in benefiting the country, if you're interested in helping the inmate society when they're done, then support the president, support the First Step Act, and get that stuff done. Giving the most violent inmates in our country voting rights, that's not helping.
While they're in
United
prison.
States.
Yeah.
While they're in prison.
Of course. Well, I think so many people would agree with that. Well, Bernie, you've been great to have on. We appreciate your service to New York, to our country, everything that you continue to do to support the president. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
During this National Police Week, we join the rest of America in honoring our fallen police officers and their families. President Trump has made it clear that he'll always support our great police officers and he will always fight for the rule of law in America in their honor. That's the real news for today. I'm Laura Trump from Studio 45 at Trump Tower in New York City. Thanks for joining us, everybody.